Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast, where every week we want to give you encouragement through different means such as testimonies, dialogues with guests, along with diving into the scriptures and exploring the incredible life transforming truths inside it. So, with all that being said, here's another episode for you to tune into and listen to. God bless. Enjoy the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast with me, Jerry D. Now, today we're going to be looking at another episode of Spoken Word Breakdown. And this week we're going to look at a spoken word that I've written called The Tragedy of Suicide. So the title is very self-explanatory. I want to give you a backdrop as to why I read it. So for those of you that know or don't know my story, suicide has played a part in my circle of influence. You know, I've lost an uncle to suicide. I have lost 4 friends to it when I was in school, 4 very dear friends. Um, and I'm a personal writer, so a lot of my writing tends to be very personal, very testimonial. I just enjoy being able to reflect on my own personal life and being able to write from a place of real hurt, real pain, real questions, confusion, and just things like that. Sometimes it actually helps me to process stuff. But I wrote this because at the time I read it, so I live in a county Cork in Ireland, and at the time I read this spoken word, Middleton, which is a town in Cork where I live, was known as the suicide capital of Europe, which was an astounding statistic that gripped me very strongly and very in a very emotional way as I was reflecting on it. And for me, I suppose the purpose behind it was to first of all be very honest, very raw about the topic of suicide, what it is, but secondly, bring the message of hope, the message of the gospel about Jesus and his intervention and how he suffered in similar situations that we found ourselves in. And because of that, he can actually comfort us. He sympathizes with our weaknesses. God, in the person of Jesus, entered our sufferings, difficulties, and disappointments. Don't you see how deep this is? That's one of the last lines, you know? And yeah, so I just wanted to give people hope with it, you know. It's one of those topics, it's kind of like it's like a dirty word, you know. Everyone knows about it, but not a lot of people speak about it, maybe because they're maybe afraid to, or maybe some people haven't been affected by the topic. And if you haven't, thank God, that you've been spared from some of the pain and difficulties that come along with trying to process losing someone near and dear to you through a topic such as suicide, you know. Um, so I read the spoken word. I think it actually took me, I think it took me like 2 hours to write it. I knew what I wanted to write. It was Christmas time, Christmas Day to be exact. I remember very well. Read it downstairs in the kitchen in my parents' house and wrote it, structured it. Was happy with how I read it. Just tweaked a few things here and there. Then I read it and I just thought it would stay on my laptop for a period of time, and it did. But shortly after I read it, I knew that I wanted to do a video, and not just a video where I was going to stand in front of a camera and perform, because this this was one where I felt that I needed to have a very strong visual, a visual that's very captivating, a visual that has a lot happening, such as the urban setting, you know, graffiti, or the urban culture kind of involved in the videos, you know. And then there's words appearing on the screen at different moments as the camera transitions. So that was the kind of the idea that I had. And I reached out to one of my friends, Philip Samango, who has a business called Kingdom Visuals. I met up with him. We were talking on FaceTime for a period of time, trying to discuss, okay, I'll come to Dublin, do the video shoot. This is what we want to accomplish. This is how much time we have. And just as I was preparing for it, it became very, how would I say, easy to do, easy to work with, because Philip is one of those people where he's just really got a really good heart for people, got a really good heart for ministry, for taking my vision on board and wanting to use it as a way to accomplish the project's mission, for lack of a better term. And that's what we done. Went up to Dublin. Then I think it was I read it in December. Went up to Dublin in February, I believe, and shot the video in one day. I was there from like 9 in the morning till about maybe 4 in the afternoon, I think it was. About 6, 7 hours it took just to get a variety of different shots, different alleyways, graffiti, and just there's a lot of shots involved, so that we had a lot of shots to choose from and pull from. And then I think it's kind of cool just to dive into some of the lines. So obviously I'm talking about it now, but at the end of this podcast, when I'm finished talking, the video is going to play. So you'll be able to either hear the video or you'll be able to watch it, depending if you're watching this podcast episode or if you're tuning into it in your car or wherever, you'll be able to hear the official track as well. But one of the lines I say, I kick it off really start from the start, it's straight into it. There's no like slow intro. It's people ask me all the time, Jay, why are you so passionate about hope? Because I'm tired of seeing my friends and people killing themselves with a rope. Truthfully, I know that hopelessness is such a sad feeling. It traps you inside and you lose faith in believing. And there's a lot that's been said there, because people do ask me a lot still to this day, because people who follow me on Instagram and my work colleagues and friends and that don't know the truth of the gospel, like I know as a personal revelation for myself. They're asking me about Jesus and what do you mean when you talk about hope? What do you mean by this and this? And um yeah, like it's really my story. I know what it's like to feel like you're in a pit of hopelessness where you feel like there is no meaning to your existence. There is no reason why you should have oxygen in your body. You feel like you're just taking up space, that there's no aim, no direction, no course of your life, and you're just going through school and wanting to have moments of a good time that provide good memories, but you don't really see, I suppose, a long-term goal or a purpose in your life. And when purposelessness, sorry, exists, it really causes you to become numb. It causes you to lack motivation to do anything. And that's exactly how I was before the Lord Jesus found me. I had no hope, which meant I had no reason to be here. And then he showed up. But that's what it does. For a lot of people, you can feel a sense of hopelessness, which can trigger your mental health from becoming good to maybe not so good. And people can battle with depression and anxiety and loneliness and suicidal thoughts and anxiety and fearfulness and just many, many other things. I don't sound like I'm a scholar because I've felt a lot of those emotions at different stages throughout my life, even after a Christian. I suppose just for me, the way I deal with it is a lot differently. I will talk to the Lord myself. I'm around good people. I have a wonderful church family that if I need someone to pray or someone to talk to me and help me or even listen to me, I have people that I can reach out to. And a lot of people don't have that, so that's what I mean by when I'm talking about that line. And then another line I say is, you ever get that news that deeply grips your heart? The type of news that makes your emotions want to fall apart. You see, you refuse to listen to what you've just heard, but really you're thinking, God, I know you're there, but like, how could this have even occurred? And what I'm trying to do in this moment is take you back to that moment where I received that phone call that one of my friends has successfully committed suicide. And I thought I was in a dream that I couldn't wake up from. I didn't believe the news was real. I just thought it was a nightmare that I was having. But unfortunately, it was the reality of what had happened. And in that moment, I felt lost. I felt like one of my closest friends didn't have a good enough friend in me, that I could have done more as a friend to be present for someone, not just physically, but maybe emotionally. How are you doing today? What's really going on? Because at that age, everyone's just, yeah, it's fine. You just talk about sports, or you just talk about girls, or you talk about whatever, but you don't really talk about, like, when someone says, how are you doing? A lot of the time it's just, how are you doing? Yeah, yeah, grand, grand, grand. You're not really looking for someone to kind of spill the beans or tell you, I'm having a terrible day. Right now, my mental health is not doing good. Oh, I'm just no, I'm not in the mood, Jerry. Most of the time it's yeah, grand, yeah, yeah, sure. The Irish humor, everything's grand. You know, And when that news happened, the numbness I felt like I could never again connect with anyone because I had so many memories with these people, one of the people in particular, and I felt as though I was never going to find connection with someone ever again on a friendship level. Because in school, I was a bit weird, I was a bit bipolar, in the sense that some days I was really good, I was friends with everyone. Other days I wasn't in the mood for anyone, so I stuck to just a small few group of people. But I purposely had a small circle of friends because there were people that I loved and trusted. And out of that circle, there was five people. Four of them successfully committed suicide during the course of my time in school. And that's what I mean by that line. You ever get that news? Maybe you've got news. A relative passed away, or maybe a cancer diagnosis or something, and you know what it's like. Your heart, it kind of feels like it stops, or sweats start to form, or your stomach kind of feels like it's turning. That's exactly how I felt in that moment. And then moving on with the spoken word, and this line maybe may catch you off guard. Um, I say, how does a 6-year-old know how to plan their own death? By jumping out of a cot with a belt tightly gripped around their neck. I'm baffled at how a 6-year-old can be so troubled and without hope. And how did they know what to do with even a belt or a rope? And I want to give you some context to that. This wasn't my friend. I didn't know this 6-year-old, but yeah, like so it was. I Google searched it very simply. I just went on Google and seen what was the youngest suicide case. I assumed it was probably going to be a teenager around 12 or 13, but no. From this article that I read just on a website called suicidecleanup.com, and the question was, who was the youngest person ever to commit suicide? And it says the following: one of the very youngest children on record to have committed suicide was a young girl by the name of Samantha, a 6-year-old girl who had her whole life in front of her. She was from Oregon, dearly loved by friends, family, and had a lot of friends. And on December the 2nd, 2009, she returned home from school with her three sisters, as she normally does. And after getting into an argument with her mother, Samantha was sent to her room as punishment for like a timeout. Apparently, she then announced that she was going to kill herself, but no one took her serious. After being sent to her room, Samantha then decided to crawl into an unused crib where she tied one end of a belt around a bar of the crib and the other end around her neck and hung herself. This obviously left her family devastated and her sisters heartbroken. And that's what I wanted to share. I suppose what I'm trying to say, even just as a way to close, when someone is not having a good day and maybe they tell you their emotions or what they're experiencing, please listen. Um, it can be awkward because sometimes you don't know what to say. And sometimes you don't have to say anything. Sometimes the loudest thing you can ever do for someone in that moment is sit there and listen. And as they're speaking, nod and make facial expressions so that they know you're listening to them. And then maybe take them out for some food or fresh air for a walk or something, do something that will let them know in that moment that you care for them, that they see you. And that story still strikes me today. A 6-year-old. Wow. Such a striking image to think that a 6-year-old was sent to room as punishment and then decided to kill herself. Wow. But that's just the reality of what we're dealing with. So now I'm just going to stop talking, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the tragedy of suicide video. So if you're watching this, you'll get to see the video as well as hear it. But if you're walking on the bus, car, please don't watch the video. I want you to focus on maybe the lyrics, the song itself. And yeah, I trust that now as I've broken it down that it may make more sense to you. Take care. God bless.
At the bottom of the ocean, down at the bottom of the sea. I will stay down down. Boat, rusty boat, we're gonna take it tonight. Lie at the bottom of the ocean. Lie at the bottom of the sea. I'm gonna stay down, down. Boat, rusty boat, we're gonna take it tonight.
People ask me, why are you so passionate about hope? Cause I'm tired of seeing my friends and people killing themselves with a rope. You see, truthfully I know the hopelessness is such a sad feeling. It traps you inside and you lose faith in believing that your life is worth more than you think. That's why people turn to stuff like drugs and drink, to block out or even to numb the self-shame. Cause to certain people you'll never be nothing more than a simple name. You ever get that news that deeply grips your heart? The type of news that makes your emotions wanna fall apart? You see, you refuse to listen to what you've just heard, but really you're thinking, God, I know you're there, but how could this have even occurred? You see, I remember that phone call so plainly. Those words I heard, they absolutely devastated me. It's painful hearing that your best friend has ended their life. It makes you think about the hidden battles and the unknown strife. And then all the questions go racing through your head. Was I a good friend? Maybe if I said something he wouldn't be dead. Hey, can I be honest? As a man I've cried numerous tears, because I've lost 4 of my friends to suicide in the last 6 years. In our society, suicide seems to be so prevalent. We need to rise up and be honest with each other if we're to be relevant. How does a 6-year-old know how to plan their own death? By jumping out of a cot with a belt tightly gripped around their neck. I'm baffled at how a 6-year-old can be so troubled and without hope. And how do they know what to do with even a belt or a rope? You see, the most used tool in relation to suicide is social media. Don't be gullible, be aware what people are feeding you. Sorry Mark Zuckerberg, but you should rebrand Facebook to be what it is, just a fake book, where we post our best pics for the most likes, but meanwhile behind that screen we're dealing with deep issues inside. Is there a solution to this massive issue of suicide? I believe it's in Jesus Christ, who 2,000 years ago was publicly crucified. He is the high priest who sympathizes with all our weaknesses. God in the person of Jesus entered our sufferings, difficulties and disappointments. Don't you see how deep this is? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hope Sessions podcast. Did you enjoy the episode? Maybe did it encourage you or motivate you? Do you think that someone in your life could benefit or be blessed by this episode? If so, then why not send it to them? Lastly, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you use. This massively helps to spread the podcast literally all across the world. And don't forget that hope is to life as oxygen is to the body. God bless you and have a wonderful week. Take care.